Hey everybody, I am Largo. This is The Lair, and welcome to the AF3, where we're going to explore the lore of one of our favorite characters today, Sergeant Slaughter. And to help me do that, normally my buddy Will would be around, but I thought for this occasion, we should call on an expert. So I've been graced with the presence of our favorite guy from Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse, Xazyl.
Hey buddy. Good morning from Australia. You know what time it is?
I don't.
It's time for action. Action 4.
Of course. I should have known.
Hey, thanks for having me on the show, Jim. I super appreciate it. I've been enjoying the show in the chats, the pre-recorded stuff, and then the live stuff after the fact. And just been enjoying every single episode so far. And I can't imagine that being here will be any less enjoyable than watching it from the comfort of my lounge.
I don't know. You say that now, but you might end up in the hot seat. I mean, it's...
Well, I appreciate the invitation anyway. And if it's a hot seat to do with in my opinion, the best topic ever, Sergeant Slaughter, as you can see behind me, he's pointing at me saying, you better say nice things. And look, I can only say nice things. If there's a mark for Sarge, it's this guy here.
Cool.
You know, true blue Aussie that's a big fan.
That's right.
The American. Big old Sarge.
I knew you were I knew you were the right guy for the job. So, you know, from your exposure of the Sarge, showing us, some of the great scenes from his wrestling career, the cool way you've shown us some of his toy renditions from the Real American Hero era and some of the cartoons. I think you've really helped to bring newer generations into a love for the Sarge who maybe didn't know much about him.
Cool.
It definitely has brought some awareness. You know, when I was a kid, I've watched some wrestling. I remember the era when he was having his feud with Andre the Giant, but right. I didn't follow it religiously. And so when you've shown some of those clips from yesteryear, the Sarge coming out and the crowd going wild, and he's passing out American flags and getting everything going. That's cool, man. I really enjoy those. So.
Oh, cool. If anyone else other than me enjoys those things, then that's a bonus. But awesome. The initial creation of Sergeant Slaughter's Slaughterhouse was I had amassed an abundant amount of Sergeant Slaughter material, whether it be commercials or whether it be interviews or whatever. And people were sending me stuff saying, oh, check this out. Like, this is all great stuff, but where am I going to put it? Like, it's taking up so much room on my phone. I got to put it somewhere. So I uploaded it onto the interwebs, onto YouTube, thinking nobody else would want to take a look at it but me. And that's all it really was. It's just like, okay, when I want to go and look at this stuff, I know exactly where I'm going to go. And I'm going to go to the Slaughterhouse. But then people started showing up and people started to chime in, tune in, comment and stuff. And it was just like, okay, there's a community of people here that are also into this. And I'm not the only weird one. So that's great. Opened up a whole world of Sarge stuff for me. And people still send me stuff now. If anyone has some stuff that I don't already have on the channel, send it to me. I'll upload it. Full credit to whoever does it. I would appreciate it. But yeah, I don't have everything, but I'm still looking. And I don't think that I'll ever run out of material to show.
Awesome. And everything I've seen is really cool. I enjoy it. So let's talk a little bit about the Sarge. I put together a few slides here. And just kind of starting off, I mean, I'm assuming most folks, if they're showing up here, they already know who the Sarge is. But just in case, who is Sergeant Slaughter? The Wikipedia answer to that is he is an American voice actor and a retired professional wrestler who is currently signed to WWE in the Ambassador Program. Do you know much about the Ambassador Program, Xazyl? Do you know what that consists of?
First of all, Wikipedia failed to mention that it is the biggest hero of Australian Xazyl Phoenix. I'm sure someone can add that to Wikipedia later. That should definitely be on the first paragraph. But yeah, he is, to me, he's more than just a voice actor. He's more than just a professional wrestler. This guy was the hero for a whole generation of 80s kids, including myself, naturally. But yeah, I think there's more to it than just this here. It's a simplified answer of Wikipedia, you know. But yeah, I think he was a hero to an entire generation. He's pop culture icon. And as far as the question is, what is the ambassador program? From my understanding, is that Sarge gets assignments where he'll get told to watch, you know, different live shows or different pre-recorded shows and give his feedback on it. And I think he'll be asked every now and again to show up on screen. He hasn't done that in a while. I wonder if he's still part of the ambassador program now. But if he is, that was basically what they had to do. Anyone in the ambassador program just chimes in and gives their feedback, because these guys are a wealth of knowledge. You know, wrestling's been around a lot longer than the WWE. You know, that was just what the biggest wrestling promotion ended up being. But yeah, he was, I think him and the other legends definitely have a wealth of knowledge that they can, you know, bring forward to the new generation of wrestling. And I wouldn't be surprised if that's exactly what he does.
That makes sense. You know, I was just recently talking with Boba Hicks, and he is also a big fan of wrestling and wrestling history. He actually wrote a dissertation about wrestling in college. And I was like, let's do a show about the history of wrestling. I'd love to go back and look at, you know, like Gorgeous George and some of the guys from yesteryear that really invented some of the modern things, like the idea of the heel and the heel turn, and where did that all come from? It's fun stuff. I don't, like I said, I don't know a lot, but what I'm learning, I'm really enjoying, and that definitely includes the Sarge. I love that picture. He has a very iconic look that he created for the Sarge persona.
Yeah, he does, and you can recapture it.
There it is.
All right.
Great sculpt.
Oh yeah, what a handsome man.
Best chin in the business.
Oh yeah.
So, from the late 1970s to the early 80s, Sergeant Slaughter had success in the National Wrestling Alliance, American Wrestling Association, and the World Wrestling Federation. He won the WWF World Heavyweight Championship and headlined WrestleMania 7 in 1991. I had to count them Roman numerals.
Yeah, fair enough.
Slaughter also captured the NWA United States Heavyweight Championship not once, but twice. That is impressive.
So when he headlined WrestleMania, that was as the heel, the Iraqi sympathizer gimmick. One of those gimmicks that on the channel now, I still get people chime in the comment section and say, you know, he was a traitor to his country. You know, he was anti-American sort of comments. And the fact that it is still raising those sort of comments and feelings and thoughts and stuff now, today, just shows how well he portrayed the heel in that time. And I've been blessed to be able to talk to Sarge and his daughter Kelly in regards to the lead up to WrestleMania and the aftermath for when Sergeant Slaughter was going around to the monuments and asking for his country back. And they went through a hard time. But he was committed to that role. He did everything, almost everything that Vince McMahon wanted. There was an idea where he could burn the American flag. And he was like, no way. They will kill me if I do that. So instead, the suggestion was to burn Hulk Hogan's shirt, which was Americana. According to Sarge, that was the next thing that he could burn that would rile up the American public. And if you see those clips, and you'll see, they were not a fan of that moment.
Right, and maybe you could explain for those who aren't familiar the concept of kayfabe. I mean, these no doubt these are real professional athletes. When they get in the ring, they are actually performing, and it is a sport, and they do get injured. But some of the drama outside of the ring is staged, and that's
So Robert Remus, the real life person who portrays Sergeant Slaughter, his gimmick is of a drill sergeant. He isn't a drill sergeant. Well, Robert Remus isn't a drill sergeant. Sergeant Slaughter absolutely is a drill sergeant. People still comment now, and I know that it upsets Kelly. I'm sure it's water off the duck's back for Sarge because he grew up in that. But people are saying things like stolen valor. He's claiming he was in Vietnam. He was claiming he was in the war. He was claiming he was in the Marines. I have never seen Robert Remus, the person, ever claim to be a Marine. I've never seen him ever claim to have actually fought in Vietnam. I have seen Sergeant Slaughter many times say that he has, and I believe him when he says it. I believe Sergeant Slaughter was in Vietnam. I believe that Sergeant Slaughter was, giving it to the troops, putting them in their paces, sending them to the slaughterhouse. Those things that you believe that in the world of kayfabe, right?
Exactly.
You believe the story of it. Now, he comes from a generation of wrestlers that lived the gimmick, right? So Robert Remus is more vocal now about how he came up with the Sergeant Slaughter gimmick. But when he was in the thick of it, he was Sergeant Slaughter all the time, head to toe.
Right. Sergeant
Slaughter, the Marine, the drill sergeant. And so, for instance, he couldn't travel with the Iron Sheik because if they got caught together, they're supposed to be mortal enemies, right? So that you have to live the story, you have to live the kayfabe, or else the people won't come and believe the show. You're selling a show, and I think there's very few people that were able to sell it quite as much as Sergeant Slaughter, considering, like I said, people are saying stolen valor, people are saying that he was anti-American, all of these things that people believe that he is because of the belief in the kayfabe.
Right. But again, it just goes to his ability to portray this character with such conviction. Yeah. People were convinced. And the heel turn, it crushed people because he was a hero. He was one of the most popular faces in wrestling before Hulk Hogan.
He was a huge heel before that, though. He started off as a heel. And it wasn't until his run-in with the Iron Sheik where he came out and he pledged allegiance to the flag and got everyone standing up that it turned almost overnight. In that minute, in fact, it was, okay, this is our guy now. This is the hero. This is America's hero. And he went, and I think it blew him into superstardom. And it's no wonder with that superstardom that he was able to find, Hasbro knocking on his door and cartoons and TV, coming at him for basically putting that image out there as the hero for a generation.
That makes perfect sense. And that kind of ties right into where we're going. So as Sergeant Slaughter, in this persona, he became known for his dark sunglasses, the campaign hat, military fatigues, and the signature wrestling move, the Cobra Clutch. Gotta love that.
Oh, yeah.
He is a WWE Hall of Famer. He was inducted as part of the class of 2004. Well deserved.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So the Cobra Clutch, perfect move when you think about the fact that he later on went on to go against Cobra. Yeah. Those things obviously were not related in at the moment, in that moment. But the fact that he had the Cobra core, he had the Cobra Clutch. He wore Cobra down the side of his pants, or he wore core down the side of his pants. And if you're a Joe fan, you know that the opposite end of G.I. Joe were the core. So the fact that he had all these many different prints on him, which go against what he would eventually become, as in G.I. Joe, head to toe G.I. Joe. I think it was just a match waiting to happen. I don't want to say a match made in heaven, but
destiny.
But he's definitely proud of being inducted in the Hall of Fame for 2004. And if you watch it, he comes out as Robert Remus and he's talking in his regular voice. And he's like, hold on a moment. And then he goes back and he picks up his campaign cover and he puts on his glasses and he comes back as the Sarge. and gives a tremendous speech. It's out there. Go check it out. You can see it on Facebook at the moment. But it's one of those things that if you don't watch it on an official source, if you have an official source to see this stuff, well, then by all means go there first. But it's hard to find this sort of the official WWE stuff. It's hard to get.
Now, do you know much about the ring that's in this picture? I mean, it's obviously very significant to the Sarge.
Yeah, so that'll be his Hall of Fame ring.
Okay.
Yeah, so
cool.
I think so. I hope to see it in person very soon.
Yeah, that's going to be awesome. This will be your first Joe Fest / Valicon.
That'll be my first trip overseas. It'll be my first trip to America. Obviously, if it's my first trip overseas, it's my first trip to America. But yeah, it's a great big adventure that I'm looking forward to. But yeah, my first Joe Fest, my first Valicon, all of that good stuff. There's going to be so many great things to see and do that my one fear is that it's going to be over before I truly appreciate it.
Yeah. And, you're going to be in good company. Not only the Sarge, Slaughter Daughter, a lot of folks that you know from the interwebs are going to be hanging out there. And you'll get some good Southern hospitality. So I'm excited for you. I'm sending an emissary myself, my buddy Will, and Bjorn, who helps us with the channel. They're going to be boots on the ground, and hopefully they'll hook up with you there. And
you can't make it yourself?
I can't. For several reasons, mostly adulting. I'm helping a friend to babysit 6 dogs, plus the 3 I have. Plane tickets aren't cheap. Neither's dog food. So, this year.
Full disclosure, the Joe Fest trip for me. So my Joe Fest quest was fully funded via a GoFundMe. All my friends pitched in. And I was able to afford the tickets that way. I'm in no way able to be able to afford something like this of this magnitude on my own. So being able to get the help, and it was Sarge's idea actually. He said, "You do a GoFundMe." I was like, "Okay, I'll do it." But I sat on it for a long time. I sat on it for ages, and I was like, I don't know if I can do this. I shouldn't do this. Should I do this? But with the support of Sarge, Kelly, and all my friends that have supported me on the channel, I've just it all came together. But it's not for nothing though either, because it's one of those things where I feel like I need to give back as well. So we've done a lot of giveaways, done a lot of prizes for people that have donated, and in some way, shape or form, I'm going to make sure that everybody that donated gets something. And that's the only way I think that I could truly ever really reconcile being able to have this amazing opportunity.
Well, I can't speak for everyone, but for me, I'd say you're already giving back by what you do with the channel, just your generosity of spirit. You're part of a great community, and the community wanted to give back to you, and I think it's awesome. It's very cool that came together. And,
it was a surprise to me that how quickly it did, and it's still hasn't fully sunk in that this is all happening. So, yeah. Anyway, that's enough about me. Let's get on and talk about the Sarge. We got a lot of action for us to talk about today.
We do. We're chock full of stuff here. So in the 1980s, an alternate version, and I highlight that because it's important to note, of the Sergeant Slaughter character was incorporated into G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, the toy line, as well as the animated series and comic books. And in the United Kingdom Action Force storyline, they changed his name to Sergeant Slammer because it's just like we don't have Ninja Turtles in the UK, you have the Hero Turtles. They felt the name was a little too harsh for some reason. Go figure.
Well, it's actually, when you think about it, right, the name Sergeant Slaughter isn't exactly the kind of name you would give to a hero, which is why it made a perfect name for a heel. Right. So for a child's market, any parent coming in and seeing the name Sergeant Slaughter, like, I get it, I understand it. It's going a little bit far, but from an outside perspective, I can see, okay, that's probably not the name we're going to have to give our hero here. Let's come up with something else. You know what? And Sergeant Slammer, that's not a bad name. The Slammer House, that makes sense.
It's got a good ring to it. And it worked well for the guys doing the animation. They didn't have to worry about the too many changes from one edition to the other. And it's a very great character. And again, the character in Real American Hero is not the same as Sergeant Slaughter, the wrestler.
Right.
He's a different version. And as that has evolved, also there is another alternate version that has recently come about. So this version of Sergeant Slaughter was created for Bobby Vala's Valaverse Action Force, and that's who we're going to talk about today. Of course, this would not be possible without all of the other renditions that have come before. So there's definitely a great lineage there. But we're going to talk about some of the differences with the Valaverse version compared to some of the others. And we'll start with just kind of going with, the idea that we're now entering into the Valaverse. This is somewhere in the very near future. It's not right now. And it is definitely coming from the imagination of Bobby Vala. So in this version, Sergeant Slaughter is 0106. He is part of the very first issue of Valaverse. He was the 6th character to be released. And of course, his code name is Sergeant Slaughter. His real name is classified in the Valaverse. Nobody knows who he really is. His primary MOS is an 18 Zulu, which is a Special Forces Team Sergeant. And we'll get into what that means in just a moment. Secondary skill, of course, is X-Ray 8. He is a drill sergeant. And his birthplace is classified. Most of the information about the personal details of this Sergeant Slaughter are not known to the public. He is a Sergeant Major, retired, and is affiliated with Action Force. And he just strikes a very heroic pose there.
Oh, yeah. So I will say on the previous image that showed the artwork for the version 1 Sergeant Slaughter, I don't know who did the artwork for that. I wish I did know. I'm sure it's out there. They did a tremendous job. I've got this on a t-shirt. I've got this on a poster. This is, it looks great on the card. It is an epic picture of Sergeant Slaughter. He's really striking a pose there. And even though he's retired, I wouldn't mess with him. That's a tough as nails drill sergeant. And there's some differences already there, because the G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter was a drill instructor, not a drill sergeant. And I believe, and I'm no military expert, so guys, if I get it wrong, it's because I just don't know. So please feel free in the comments to correct me. But I'm almost certain this version of Sergeant Slaughter is Army.
That's correct.
And the Marines were G.I. Joe. And
that is correct.
And so forth.
Yep. So
good.
You're right. And again, such a great picture. They used it on his combat profile.
Oh,
yeah.
That picture.
It's iconic. With the version 2 Sarge, they did change the card art, and I kind of wish they'd stuck with this one. I really like it. But, they showed him in a different uniform.
Yeah. It's a different style for that series as opposed to for this series, all across the board for those figures. But this one's really striking. It really captures your eye. But there's something to be said for different art styles. But this one's just my preference as far as the two are concerned, art-wise.
I agree. And most of the information we'll go over today does come from the combat profile, as well as Mission File Comic Book number 4, which highlighted the Sarge. So, every soldier has stories about their drill sergeants from basic training, but few can compare with the claims of a 6'2", 240-pound giant known as Sergeant Slaughter.
Oh yeah, look at that.
Oh yeah, he's given what for, and they have no idea what's ahead of them.
No, they're not just standing at attention; they are petrified.
Right. So let's talk about what a drill sergeant is, and for folks who haven't served, they really haven't had the pleasure of knowing a drill sergeant right up in their face. It is an experience you never forget. You never forget your first drill sergeant. A drill sergeant is a non-commissioned officer, an NCO, who trains new soldiers for the U.S. Army. They are experts in basic combat training. Most of them have already been in combat deployments before they can even apply to become a drill sergeant. They know Army values and battle drills. Typically, a drill sergeant is responsible for a set amount of soldiers or raw recruits. They're not soldiers yet. They're the clay he's got to mold. And basic training is about an 8 to 10 week cycle for the U.S. Army. And as you can see from some of the pictures there, that hat is iconic and is a badge of honor for these guys. They've earned it. You don't put that hat on until you've gone through training yourself and prove that you're one of the best of the best. So I threw these in because I thought these would be interesting. Guys who've been through this will get a chuckle. Guys who haven't will get an education. I was a recruit at one time many years ago, and I remember some of these. So 7 drill sergeant sayings that really mean you're screwed. If you hear your drill sergeant say, half right face, that means he wants you to open up and get ready to do some PT, because somebody screwed up and you're about to get some education in the form of physical education. So anytime you hear half right face, that means you're getting ready to push the ground, do some push-ups or whatever other physical tortures he has in mind for you for the day. When he says toe the effing line, he means it. He means stand in formation, and you better be there before he turns around, and everybody better be shipshape. If for any reason a drill sergeant has to repeat himself by saying, I said, you're already in trouble because you didn't listen the first time, and he'll let you know. You never want to hear a drill sergeant say, hurry up, because that means you're already behind. Drill sergeants have a very impossible task. They have 8 to 10 weeks to train a knucklehead and make him a basic soldier. He doesn't have time for you to dilly-dally. They give them impossible schedules, and those impossible schedules are then passed on to you as the raw recruit. You have to do everything in a hurry, and sometimes it's hurry up and wait. You're rushing to get someplace to wait until the next cycle of your education, and that includes chow time. I remember many times in the chow hall, it's like, what can I eat as I'm going through the line, because I'm going to just grab every bite as fast as I can and hustle, because I don't want to be the last guy out, because that's not a good thing. If you hear a drill sergeant say something like, hey, battle, come here, he is probably not about to praise somebody. He's talking to another drill sergeant, and he's calling him over to show just how ate up, how goofy this particular recruit is. And now you're going to have 2 drill sergeants in your face, like this poor schmuck here. Oh, yeah. Obviously, he's done something to rate a special amount of attention that requires 2 drill sergeants. If you hear a drill sergeant come into the barracks and say, whose whatever is this, that means somebody's gear was not secure. Something was out of place, and whoever owns it, oh my, they're in so much trouble. And last but not least, if you hear a drill sergeant say, are we friends now? That means you have probably overstepped. You have forgotten your military bearing. You're not equals. You're not on the same level as this drill sergeant. And if you ever address him in a very informal manner, you will be corrected quickly.
Well, consider me educated. I will say this, though. When you say 8 to 10 weeks, that does not sound like a long time. Right? I'm sure in the moment it feels like eternity, but that is really, in the grand scheme of things, that's not a long time at all.
Right. It really isn't. Basically, again, basic training is to just teach you the basics. It's how to have a military bearing, how to understand how to take orders, how to do things, with attention to detail. Things that as a civilian, they're not usually in your consciousness unless you come from a military family. So it's a crammed, crash course in military etiquette. And once you get to wherever you're going, usually an A school or MOS training for the Army, then you start learning more about what you're actually going to do in the service. That first 8 to 10 weeks is just opening the door and getting your mind in a military fashion. So yeah, it's not a long time, but when you're there, it feels like an eternity.
Right. I can only imagine.
And another group of things that you might hear from a drill sergeant. And honestly, some of these are things a drill sergeant can do to you that are far worse than getting punched.
Okay.
One thing that a drill sergeant can do is they can give you a nickname for the rest of your life. Many recruits pick up nicknames that are not kind in
Right.
basic, and they follow you your entire career. I was fortunate enough. I didn't get one hung on me that wasn't that was horrific. I tried to stay under the radar as much as possible, but there was this nice fella. He was an Iowa corn-fed, real tall, goofy guy. Nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Could not march to save his life. And my drill sergeant started calling him Big Bird. Big Bird! Get him! Big Bird, get in step! And Big Bird stuck. To this day, I don't know what his real name was.
Oh, no.
Sometime after that, I was at Fort Gordon, and I was going through training, and I saw him, and I was like, "Hey, Big Bird!" And the guys who were with him, thought I was picking on him and thought I was wanting to start a fight. And he's like, "No, man, I know this guy. It's cool. That's for basic." But if a drill sergeant hangs a name on you, it's a good chance it will follow you through your career. If they're feeling particularly ornery and you look a little dehydrated, it's always important to hydrate. They will make you chug an entire canteen, and that's not fun. It's just this side of waterboarding. It's not.
Okay.
And what's worse is now that you have an entire canteen in your system, you have to go back to this drill sergeant that you've already irritated and ask him if you can go to the latrine because, nature's calling.
Right.
He can force you to use your mattress as a scrub brush. Now, this is a particularly unusual punishment. Usually, this is a platoon level screw up. If he comes into the barracks and things are a mess, it has been known to happen where you will have a whole bunch of recruits cleaning the floor with somebody's mattress. And, I would not want to be the unfortunate recruit. It was his mattress, because then you're going to have to sleep on that thing.
Oh, gee. No way.
They are very much about physical fitness. So if you raise the ire of a drill sergeant, they will smoke you all day. And they have some very interesting ways to teach physical fitness. Some that are quite inventive. And of course, another worse thing than getting smoked, they can recycle you, which means they can set you back a week or set you all the way back to the very beginning of basic. If you're just not getting it and they feel that you need further instruction, it is at their discretion. They can bump you back to whatever part of the training they feel you need to go back through. That just means your basic training gets extended and you're going to get yelled at by the same guys or another group for whole new reasons to feel miserable. And the worst I think they can do is when they stare. If you have eye contact with a drill sergeant, you've screwed up. You've screwed up royal. You don't know how you've screwed up, but you know it's bad.
Yeah. Whoa. I'm petrified just at the prospect of it. And having your mattress, I mean, okay, that's bad. But then if you think that you're at the end and they tell you that you're going to be recycled back in, that's devastating. Yeah.
But there are some guys, with some thick skulls that don't learn so easy. So it happens. So yes, everybody's got some fond memories of drill sergeants, but with the character of Sergeant Slaughter, he's more than just a drill sergeant. He is a Special Forces veteran. So I thought we'd go through a little bit of what it means to be a United States Army Special Forces member. Colloquially, they are known as the Green Berets, obviously because of their distinctive headgear. They are part of the Special Operations Force of the United States Army. They are geared towards 9 doctrinal missions: unconventional warfare, foreign internal defense, meaning they go behind the lines, direct action, that's pretty obvious what that means, counterterrorism, counterinsurgency, special reconnaissance, information operations. And here's a mouthful: counter proliferation of weapons of mass destruction.
You did well on that
and of
one.
course, thank you. I get tongue-tied sometimes, but I try. And security force assistance. The Army's version of Special Forces is somewhat unique compared to other branches' Special Forces. They emphasize learning language. You have to learn at least a second language to be Army Special Forces, because you're going to be going in country somewhere, and they want you to be fluent. You're going to be working with whoever is native, and you need to understand their language, their culture. You have training and skills in working with foreign troops from other lands. Recruits are, as I said, required to learn a foreign language as part of their training and must maintain knowledge of the political, economic, and cultural complexities of the regions to which they're going to be deployed. Other Special Forces missions, known as secondary missions, include combat search and rescue, counter-narcotics, hostage rescue, humanitarian assistance, humanitarian demining, which is very important in some parts of the world, peacekeeping, and manhunts. ODA 525 is a team. This is just kind of a picture of what these guys look like when they're down and dirty in the field. They are not your conventional troops, obviously, by the way they look. But they have a very specific mission, and they do it quite well. The Green Beret itself, it is steeped in some legend and lore, and it goes back to, an earlier time. It is very distinct, and it is something that is earned, and it shows that they are a very unique part of the armed forces. So there was some dander raised when the United States Army, in their infinite wisdom, someone much higher up than I ever got, decided they wanted to try to give berets to other parts of the Army. Different colors, of course, but still, it kind of, in many people's minds, it diminished the value and the significance of the berets for the Rangers and for the Special Forces, the Green Berets. And I believe that has been discontinued. I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've served, but I know people were not happy about that. Their crest has a specific motto, which I will not try to pronounce in Latin, but it literally means free the oppressed, and that's a big part of their mission. So this is a quote that I found from a 28-year veteran of Army Special Forces that I thought it kind of points to why the Green Beret is so special. He said, in some sense, any beret is just an impractical piece of felt. Many of us would have sought out Special Forces and done the job without a beret or a uniform, for that matter. However, the importance of the Green Beret is in what it symbolizes: to distinguish and honor a unit and the men purpose-built to fight a new kind of war, ancient in its origins, as articulated by President JFK at the height of the Cold War. It is a distinction, and the fact that the Valaverse version of the Sarge has earned this is special. And it definitely colors his value to the Action Force as an advisor, as a team leader, in the sense that he's going to be training the newer recruits into Action Force and get them into fighting shape. So, we mentioned an ODA before. As once you've gone through your basic training, once you've reached the point where you've been selected to go for training to become Special Forces, it's a very unique community, and you have to learn very specific skills. Like we said, unconventional warfare being one of them. Right. You're not a rank and file guy anymore, and there are very particular military occupational specialties, MOS, that you have to qualify for, and there's a special school that you go to for Special Forces qualification course at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, which can last up to 2 years for training, depending on how specialized your MOS is. After you've completed that training, these new Green Berets are assigned to a Operational Detachment Alpha, or ODA, at one of 5 active duty or 2 National Guard Special Forces groups. So you're divvied out to wherever you're needed, and then your mission begins. So just to point out kind of an idea of how a team is assembled. Usually it's about 12 men in an ODA, and in that group, these specialties will always be there. You have a detachment commander, which is a captain. He's your go-to leader. You have an assistant detachment commander, also an officer. Then you have an 18 Zulu, and that is our Sarge. That's the operations team sergeant. That's his role. There's an assistant operations and intelligence sergeant that assists him. There are at least 2 weapon sergeants. There's an engineer sergeant. Got to build bridges and learn how to get around things. You got to have an engineer. There's a medical sergeant. You got to have a medic. And there is a communications sergeant. So that's the core of the team. And the rest of those 12 men are usually newer guys that are being brought in and being taught one of these other specialties maybe as well. So that is a lot of information. But it's important to understand. Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. This is all stuff that I'm not really that aware of. So this is all great stuff for me to learn, not just because of our action figure ties, but it's good to know how things in the world work. And
sure,
those that serve in the military are doing so for the peace of people like you and I. And the least I can do is get an education around it. So I appreciate it.
Indeed, and that's one of the things I appreciate about what Bobby's done is he does include the MOSs, the specialties of these troops on the combat profiles, and when you start exploring the lore, which is what we're doing, you see more of the depth of this fictional world is built on some real world ideas.
Yeah,
and it gives me a better appreciation for what these guys represent. So the specific task of a operations team sergeant is, he's reached the level of master sergeant to get that role. He's responsible for all operational aspects of the ODA. The team sergeant is the ODA's senior NCO and typically the most experienced Green Beret on the detachment. So by the time our Sarge has reached this point, he's very well seasoned. So he's definitely somebody you don't want to get on the wrong side of.
Oh yeah.
So now that we've seen some of the real world background, we'll look at the Valaverse version of the Sarge here. And although he is now retired, obviously he still has a lot of that specialized training in his, repertoire. Sergeant Slaughter began his military career as a Special Forces team sergeant, leading classified operations in the early 80s. At some point in his career, Slaughter left the teams to become a drill sergeant at Fort Benning, where he pummeled young recruits into the ground day and night. And that's where he earned the nickname Sergeant Slaughter.
That'll do it.
It didn't matter to him who the recruits were or where they were from. He treated them all alike, and he turned them into real soldiers. So in this alternate version, that's where he got his name, from his treatment of the recruits.
Yeah.
I love this picture. This is from the mission files, and you kind of get the homage here to some of the special teams work he did in the past, and he's leading the charge. So after Benning, Sergeant Slaughter retired and was recalled to serve as a special tactics instructor to a special missions unit, which remains unnamed, within the United States military, where he served with distinction until 1994, after which he formally retired from all active military service. So that's where we pick up with the Sarge at this point in the Valaverse. The nation has collapsed. The United States is no longer united, and Sergeant Slaughter was pegged to again serve as an advisor to a new special missions unit called Action Force, where he passed on his experience and knowledge from his days in the teams. Slaughter may be well known, but his true identity is not. But that won't stop any enemies from hunting him down. For Sergeant Slaughter, the real fight has just begun. And there's that iconic picture again on the side of the box.
Oh yeah, he looks ready for it.
Oh yeah, he's not gonna back down from anybody. And mission force or mission file number 4 is chock full of Sarge goodness. Great artwork, great story. This was one of my favorite. They're all my favorite. I gotta but I do enjoy this particular storyline because it has some depth and it gives you an insight into this particular version of the Sarge and how he fits in the Valaverse. Alternate cover, he and Karak going at it. Oh yeah. It has not been stated, officially, but I do believe there is some bad blood between these two. They both served at a certain time in the military. They may have known each other before. I'm guessing they have a personal grudge, and we'll find out in the future. So when we pick up with the Sarge, he's having to put on a knee brace. He's an old warhorse. He's got some wounds. He's not as young as he used to be. And, time is catching up with him. But he's still as sharp as ever and still loves his country, or what was his country. He's torn apart by what's happening. He sees, the dissolution of the Republic, and he wants to do something. He's got to do something to help because that's his nature. And so when there is an emergency in California, there's a major earthquake, he goes to help with the relief efforts and learns from one of his former members of the teams that he served with, things are not exactly what they seem, and he should be wary. This gentleman here, who is unnamed, we know he has served with the Sarge in the past, and he lets him know, look, things are not good, and if they see you out here, you're easily recognizable, and there's a mark on your head. Let's get you out of harm's way. You're too exposed. You do not want to get picked up by the swarm. And so he's starting to get a better idea of what's really going on here. And he's starting to get clued in on the larger picture. And at some point, he hooks up with Condor and the boys, and he becomes a part of Action Force. And this was kind of the first mission where they work together. At this point, they're not a cohesive team yet, but he's going to whip them into shape. And as you can see, he's ready to lead the charge. Some very iconic images in this. And Condor right there with him. Sarge is immediately impressed. I believe it's mentioned in there that Sarge actually knew his dad, who was also a very excellent soldier. So he's like, if this kid's anything like his dad, he'll be all right. Of course he is. And he's barking orders. He's telling them what to do, and they're listening because he's the guy who has the experience. And because of that experience, they win the day. And when he sees Karak on the field, he immediately goes for the tackle. He does not like this guy at all. And there's definitely some venom there. I want to know more about that story, but it's not revealed yet. But I'm thinking it's personal. So the garrison runs away with their tail between their legs, and the Sarge calls in the Steel Brigade to mop up. So it's a great story. If you haven't read it, it is available. Comixology. There might even be some hard copies available on Valaverse.com still. And at Joe Fest, usually he'll bring some. If he's got anything left, comic book wise, he'll bring them to the ValaCon.
So what I like about the comic, particularly that issue, is that it allows you to have some time with the Sarge. It allows you to have some breathing time with the Sarge and just get you to understand where he is in that point in his life. And the juxtaposition between his painful wake up, and I mean you can think about that in any way that you like, whether that's the physical painful wake up of everyday life, or the painful wake up that this world isn't quite how he thinks it is, and then leading in that battle, putting all that pain to the side, and just being the leader that they need in that moment. And the artwork is just exceptional in this comic. Sarge looks, I mean, I've never got a bad word to say about Sarge. He looks perfect in every frame.
He's iconic, very iconic.
Yeah, absolutely. He really does. It's got such a iconic look that every panel, it really pops. It really draws your eye to it. And not just because I'm a Super Sarge fan, but just because it's that epic profile that it does show that there are, leadership quality, leadership capabilities, and the ability to get that team together and work like a well-trained unit.
Exactly. And just the charisma of this guy, and the fact that if you're in his presence, he knows what's going on. You're not going to question his orders, whether it's, the drill sergeant tone he takes, or the fact that he can look at the tactical situation and understand what needs to be done in a split second. This is the guy to follow. And even Condor steps in line. He's like, I'm not arguing with the Sarge. He's the guy. So, and for what we see, the Sarge will not have he's not going to be an active boots on the ground guy who's going on every mission. He's going to be more in the background. He's a senior advisor. He's someone who's training the raw recruits. He's training the replacements. He's keeping things in shape. That's what he does, and that's his role. So he's definitely going to be around, and he'll have some spots where he'll show up. But in the field, Condor is going to be your point man. He has his teams around him. The Sarge is there to have his back. In the toy line, we have the first Sarge there, which I'm partial to. I like the jacket version. It's just cool.
Well, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I'll try not to go on a rant. But I didn't even know we were going to get one Sergeant Slaughter in Action Force, let alone two, technically 3 or 4, depending on your how you consider a unique action figure. And by that I mean the variant, which I'm sure we'll probably get into later, and the soft goods option that was available very briefly. So that technically makes 4 types, uniquely. But if I'm looking at the 2 of these, originally when I first saw the version 1 Sergeant Slaughter from Action Force, I went, yes, this is perfect. He's an older, grizzled drill sergeant who has seen some action, and it looks like the Sarge as he would today. And I like that they've been able to differentiate other looks of Sergeant Slaughter by having that jacket on him, instantly you look at that and you're like, okay, that's an Action Force Sergeant Slaughter. It doesn't look like anything else that's come before it. It's unique. It's a great spin on it, and a good way to get people interested in picking up a new version of Sarge. This is not G.I. Joe. This is Action Force. You can draw lines from bits and pieces of Action Force directly to G.I. Joe if you want. The name Action Force alone could have a straight line to G.I. Joe. The tongue-in-cheek comments to do with being in a special unit in the 80s up until 94. That's a straight line to G.I. Joe if you want it to be. I mean, Steel Brigade technically could be a straight line to G.I. Joe.
And it's no secret Bobby Valla is a fan of G.I. Joe, Real American Hero. He loves a lot.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Massive collection. And the reason Steel Brigade is part of Valaverse is because he loves that character and wanted to see.
I think his collection of Steel Brigade would rival my collection of Sergeant Slaughter. I would like to put them up against each other and see who's got the most numbers. But again, drawing a line to G.I. Joe, having Sarge in the line of Action Force is going to be another line. If you want to, you can just say, well, this is G.I. Joe. It is, if you want to draw that line there, but this is its own unique character. This is not G.I. Joe. This is not WWE. This is not, the Mario version, Super Mario version of Sergeant Slaughter. This is its own thing. And having this unique look for Sarge means that when this is on my shelf, nobody is going to mistake this for anything else than what it is.
Right. But and there's going to be the obvious comparisons. And we've said it before. I'll say it again. You can like both. You can like them all. You can like the wrestling figures from Mattel. You can like the Hasbro G.I. Joe version in Classified. But they're different versions of the character. The one that's in the Classified line is more of the larger-than-life heroic version that was in the cartoons and in the comic books. And that's a different character than this version, who is the older, seasoned Sarge. And
it's not even... when you get down to the real grassroots of Sarge, Action Force Sarge, there is no connection to anything else, really. Not really. Not to wrestling, not to G.I. Joe, not to anything else. But you see in the comment section, when this was first announced, people in the comment sections were saying, when are you going to bring out like a triple T for him or something? When are you going to put him in a tank top? When are we going to get like that classic look of Sarge in a the black tank top or whatever? Can you swap heads with Carrick so that my Sarge can look like G.I. Joe Sarge? And I'm like, guys, it doesn't have to be G.I. Joe Sarge. G.I. Joe Sarge already exists. You can go and get one. This is even before Classified Sarge was announced. But if you want a tank top G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter, you just go onto eBay and you can get one. This is something else.
Yeah, it did speak to the love of the character that people remember. They love that Real American Hero version. And
if anyone understands that, it's me.
Sure.
However, if you look at Hasbro's G.I. Joe, none of the versions 1 through 4 of the original line were the same. You know, we had the USA Sarge, which was like the wrestling gimmick. You had the Triple T Sarge, and then you went over to Warthog Sarge, which is a lot different to any of those ones that came before it. And then you had the repaint of Swords Marauders, which, although utilizing the mail-away body, looked completely different. Perhaps to its own detriment. But they didn't rehash any of their old stuff either. Even technically, the Classified Sergeant Slaughter isn't a rehash of the Triple T Sarge either, because the colors are different. The campaign cover is different to the Triple T Sarge. So even they haven't completely gone back. Right. But then when you see version 2 of Action Force Sergeant Slaughter, all I see here is G.I. Joe fans getting a G.I. Joe version of Action Force Sarge. The black tank top, the green boots. Technically the Triple T. It's more like the mail away boots. The boots look more like mail away Sarge, but it just in that way, in that form and fashion, to me, that screams. Everyone kept saying they wanted this, so we're gonna make it. Right? That is. And that's not a diss at all, because the fans wanted it, fans got it. That's exactly what they want. All I'm saying is that the fans couldn't just have Action Force; they wanted Sarge G.I. Joe. Now, having said that, and this will be the final part of my rant, Jim. I swear, this is the final part. I don't display my version 2 like that. I throw on the Marine cover, and because he's Army, I don't know if that hat is even supposed to go with this figure. I'm ignorant to that.
Technically, no, but in the Valaverse, it's just kind of the way it is. So
I put that hat on him. I don't have the campaign cover. Yeah. Right,
yeah,
like that.
This is the way I use it. If he's going to be in the field, he's not going to be wearing the campaign cover. He may not wear the shades. He's going to be dressed to do battle. So that's what
mine
I
doesn't
use
wear the shades either. Yeah,
and
exactly.
I gave him the green tank because I just thought it looked better. So,
well, it does look cool.
Yeah, that's I love the easy way to customize these things. And
the green tank top goes really good with those boots.
Oh yeah. I think it should have been the green. So I sacrificed a trigger to make that happen. So good thing that I can get extras of those.
It looks great. So yeah, I mean that's how I display mine too. Because if I've got a Sarge in a black tank top and a campaign cover, I don't need another one. So I display him differently because it is a different character. Now again, I'm not dissing anyone that wanted to have a G.I. Joe version of the person they grew up with, because he was known for wearing black tank tops in and out of G.I. Joe, with wrestling and whatever. But I'm just saying, out of the two, the first one definitely I think has more of a presence about it.
Absolutely. In my opinion, yeah, version 1 is when he's training the troops, when he's in the HQ. Version 2 is when he has to go out into the field, which does happen occasionally, and he's strapped for war. He's got his grenade launcher. He's got his signature sidearm, and he's looking to rough somebody up. So,
and this is the most weaponed up Sergeant Slaughter we've ever seen, right? You've got then the convention Sergeant Slaughter back in 2006 and the modern era offerings that they brought out. Sergeant never came with a firearm, right?
That's
he had the slaughter cannons, but he didn't. That was so sad. But yeah, now he's in for it. He's got his sidearm. He's got his grenade launcher. This is definitely the most armed we've ever seen Sergeant Slaughter, and the options for hands across the board for Action Force is, above and beyond.
Right. And again, accessories. Valaverse gives us the best accessories. Not only hands for every occasion, but in this case also the cut-off jacket with the secondary cover, which he would probably wear if he's in the field. If you don't want to have him with the jacket, you can have him with the Alice gear type, for extra stuff. It works, and it gives you versatility, and it gives you some extra bits to customize whatever. So, and the campaign cover and signature glasses are there just because they should be. So, both are good. I am partial to the original version, but the version 2 I've used for a lot of different customizing because it's a great base to make some mercenaries.
And let's not even sidestep the fact that those stands are next level. What pattern do they call that? Diamond plating?
Diamond plate.
Brilliant. And a slot for your file card.
Absolutely. Super awesome. And I have a bunch of extras because, ironically, a lot of Valaverse don't need the stand. They stand quite well without them. Whereas some of my Marvel Legends and other figures are desperately in need of a stand, and these work quite well with those. So that's a bonus. But I love seeing the two of them together there. It's like, I'm so good I had to make a twin.
They do look good together. I do think that Marine cover looks better on that figure. That's pretty much how I display mine, without the glasses, with that hat. Is it bad to say hat? Cover?
No. Cover, hat, it's cool.
The straps, everything. Yeah. It helps to differentiate it from anything else. And that grenade launcher is next level.
Oh yeah. They did a great job with that. It's almost Mezco level of detail as far as the finish, the way it fits with the character, the revolving cylinder, nice touch. It looks great. I love it. So, when we're going back into yesteryear, obviously we have to mention Action Force from
Full Force.
Full Force, yes. Starting with the Palatoy days and then going into Hasbro. This was the UK version, the Sergeant Slammer version that guys got. And thanks to Blood for the Baron for posting this so I could find some reference material. They have an awesome archive if you ever want to know anything about Action Force from back in the day. It's a great resource. This is Sergeant Slammer from 1988. He is also a drill instructor. He's classified top secret, and his military specialty was infantry and drill instruction. He is a survivor trainer. Place of birth, Paris Island, South Carolina, as they put it on their card. And he's an E7. So this is a different character from... This is even a slightly different character from what was in Real American Hero, as far as the file card. And, of course, very different from what we have in Valaverse. That triple T is iconic, man. I love it.
Yeah, look, I do too. When you think about because the original design for it looked more like a jet cockpit that he had attached treads to. So you can kind of see where that's morphed into his triple T tank. Triple T being Tag Team Terminator. What's great about this file card that's different to the American version of Sergeant Slaughter is that it actually goes into a little bit more detail with his wrestling history, which isn't touched on at all in the Hasbro G.I. Joe version.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
That's very cool. As much as the Triple T is iconic, I kind of like the Warthog better.
The Warthog is a great troop transport. It wasn't until I took the shell, because I'd never built one up myself. As a kid, people might be surprised to hear this. As a kid, I never had a G.I. Joe Sergeant Slaughter. I wasn't able to find him anywhere. I couldn't find him. The only one that I ever had was, and this one was sent to me by Space Commander. Shout out to Space Commander. I had one of these as a kid, and the way I got around it.
Is that die-cast metal?
No, these are plastic.
Okay.
These were in special G.I. Joe packets. But the way I got around it was, if I couldn't find a Sergeant Slaughter, I was going to be Sergeant Slaughter. So I dressed myself up as Sarge, and I would give my toys the orders, and then off they'd go and do the battle. But it wasn't until I got a Warthog later in life where I took the shell off the interior. When you have a look at all the detail that's hidden within, it is very well detailed. It is probably my favorite of the APCs, even though the original APC is, iconic in its own right. Am I calling it the right thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
And honestly, the Action Force version of that was an improvement. Palitoy took what Hasbro gave them and made it better. They gave it a better interior. They gave it a place for, the wounded. You've got a communication center. It's an HQ. It's a mobile HQ.
Oh, yeah. It is a vast improvement. And it's a shame that we didn't get a version of that elsewhere. But it's not just, I will say this of the Warthog and the Triple T, they're not just re-stickered. They actually have a variant color of green. So the internal green part and for the cockpit of the Triple T, and the entire green for the Warthog itself is a different shade of green. It's like an emerald green as opposed to the olive drab. But so if you've got an Action Force Triple T, you don't just have a different stickered Triple T, you've got an actual different variant.
Interesting. And it's like our friend Articulated Chad often points out, G.I. Joe works best in 1/18 scale because of the detail of the vehicles, the play sets, the things you can do in that scale. It's not as easy to do in the 1/12 scale. I'm partial to 1/12. That's my current collection is mostly 1/12. But
where would you put the vehicles if you had them? Where would you put a G.I. Joe Whale at that scale? Where would you put a Sky Striker of that scale? Where would you put any of this stuff other than everywhere?
Right. I do have a Humvee similar to the one that Desert Rat has, and it takes up a whole shelf by itself. It's huge to be in scale with these guys. What is coming with the Valaverse vehicle, it's going to take up another shelf, but it'll be worth it.
That's another thing people have been talking about for the whole inception of Action Forces. When are the vehicles coming? It's,
we want vroom vroom.
It's probably the first question he was ever asked, and it'll be the last question he's ever asked until it shows up. And unfortunately, after it does show up, it'll be, when's the next one? When's the next vehicle?
When you're an innovator and you put out cool stuff, people are going to expect you to keep innovating. So, it's a curse he's created for himself.
Well, if you can make and produce toys for the masses, having people ask for toys, I guess, is just part of the experience, right?
Yeah, and he keeps coming up with some winners, so he's still got plenty of ideas in the toolbox. So from the Action Force inspiration, again, Bobby gave us another winner. He gave us an homage to Action Force with Sergeant Slammer. It's the same figure, but a great box, limited edition. I have one of these, which I really enjoy. The artwork is iconic. I'm fortunate enough to have an in-box Palitoy Action Force SAS Commando, same colors. Nice.
Yes.
And I love putting these, I've got this one, I've got Tony's Desert Rat in these colors, and then I've got the original, Action Force guy from Palitoy, and they make a great display.
Did Bobby ever mention why the file card on the back wasn't changed to Sergeant Slammer?
I don't know.
Because if he mentioned it, I missed it.
It does say Sergeant Slammer.
Does it? No, but I'm sure somewhere in there it says Sergeant Slaughter, unless I've read mine wrong.
You know, I've never noticed that. You're right. In the text, it does say Sergeant Slaughter. Well, probably just an oversight, but at least I got.
I'm probably the only one who's noticed it, so don't worry about it, Bobby.
Oh, you'll hear about it when you see him at Valicon. It's like, hey, man.
I'll hold that question until I see him. That's right. I was lucky enough to get one of these signed and sent to me by Sarge and Kelly. They sent me a gift box, and this was in there, signed to me. And it says, to Xazyl, it's time for action. And then Sergeant Slaughter signature on there. That was great. Looks great in yellow. If you guys are getting these signed at Joe Fest this year, if you got one of these and you're getting it signed, do it in yellow. Looks great.
Yeah. Very cool. So this is my version of the Sarge that usually is on display. The vehicle there is from the Marvel Legends World War II Captain America. Yep. This particular motorcycle definitely fits with the Sarge because it was designed by Bobby Valla from his days.
Well, there you go.
The other company. I mean, he didn't design the original bike, but the new fairings and all the pieces, that was his design that he put onto an existing piece to make it fit with that iconic Captain America. And it just made sense. It belongs to Sarge,
Yeah.
So
the star, the green, just it screams muscle and badass and ready for action. So
exactly.
Definitely.
So in my headcanon, when he's not terrorizing recruits, he's tinkering with his vintage bike and keeping it in ship shape to roar out when needed.
Absolutely. And that's the Action Force pin by his feet.
It is. And I really wish Bobby would make more of these. Unfortunately, they're not available anymore. But I like using it for toy photography. In my iconic hat that I wear everywhere, I have another one of those. I've got the Steel Brigade pin and the Action Force. And I love when people ask me, because then it gives me an excuse to talk about Action Force.
Man, I got a bunch of this stuff when it first was dropped. The pins, I got the posters, like I said. I got the colored poster, I got the black and white one. The comics, obviously, I was all in and ready for action.
Yeah, I missed the Kickstarter, but once I learned about the line, I started seeing his prototypes popping up in some of the different toy channels talking about what was coming. Saw the articulation, then started reading about what was going to be coming. When I got a hold of those first couple of mission files, I was like, I'm hooked. I got to have it all. So I did not get a version of the Sarge with the cloth goods. I snoozed on it. It sold out before I got to it.
I couldn't get one because it was not available for international orders. But oh well, we can't have it all.
Yeah, but I've got the Sarges I have. I'm very happy with, and they definitely are an integral part of the team.
I will give a shout out to I don't know the lady's name, but the lady that hand sewed those soft good jackets for Sarge. I think it was only maybe 200 or 100 or something, very small numbers, less than Sergeant Slammer, so less than 500. She did an amazing job. So shout out to whoever that was. And I don't know the artist. I mean, I should have looked. I should have opened the comics and investigated the stuff. But the artists for the comic, the file card, the boxes, the sculptors, the designers, or everyone involved in all of this, job well done, guys and girls.
Absolutely.
Job well done, team.
And that's a good point, Xazyl. It's one thing to draw a fictional character. It's another thing to draw the likeness of someone who is in real life and get it right. I mean, I've seen a lot of, comics that are adapting a motion picture or something where they're trying to get a look of a character, and they don't always quite get it. This is the Sarge. There's no question. Yeah. The art is spectacular in these. And, there's another great picture of the Sarge with his combat profile and his signed Bobby Valla issue number 4, which I have on the wall in his place of honor. So
I got my comics signed when I ordered them as well. It's good to have that option. Not a lot of comic artists back when I was originally collecting comics weren't getting a huge shout out. It wasn't until later on where people started to recognize that this isn't just Marvel, this isn't just DC. These are true artists, and there's a lot of hands in any project, and it's good to give recognition where recognition is due.
Absolutely.
I will say, you mentioned before how you missed the Kickstarter. Full disclosure, I wasn't collecting this scale anything. I'd given up on Marvel Legends. I can't remember, if I'd had anything other than Marvel Legends in that scale off the top of my head. I don't even have those anymore. But it wasn't until they announced that they were bringing out Sarge to the Line is when it hit my radar. And I think that's probably true for a lot of people that got into Action Forces, that this was their jumping on point. It was definitely my jumping on point. I was only really collecting scale like, G.I. Joe scale. Right. Or He-Man or whatever. But yeah, this was like, okay, this has got my attention. So now I'll dive in and take a look. And now, I was pointing over my shoulder and standing at attention.
Yeah, and as Bobby has pointed out several times with the 3 POA, there are still people coming new to the line going, "Hey, I missed these characters. Can you release them again? Because I missed out on Condor. I missed out on Bone Collectors. Like, guys, I can only reissue so many because there's so many new ones I want to do." But
but even the reissues are going to have slight variations to them,
yes,
which I think is that's good for collectability wise, because if you can pick up a second Condor and it won't be the same as your first one, it doesn't diminish the fact that you were there from the beginning, because you can still have your first version Condor, but it also gives people a jumping on point. Because I mean, He-Man, he had a He-Man variation throughout Masters of the Universe, because someone was always jumping on at any given point. So, you can't re-release every character, but just touch on those ones that are popular and give them a bit of a spin, like Trigger coming out again with the shades off now, and a grimace look on his face. Oh, brilliant.
It's awesome. However, if we get a Thunder Punch Condor, I'm going to say he jumped the shark. It's gone too far.
All right, yeah, that's definitely going too far.
But I am looking forward to the Special Deployment series coming out. I was fortunate enough to get all of Series 1. I got them through, partly through Big Bad, even though there was some kerfuffle on getting their shipment. And I was also able to get the rest through Valaverse.com, which is the first place you should go if possible when you're picking up your Valaverse.
A lot of this stuff was coming out when the pandemic was huge, massive. It was a big disruption.
Absolutely.
So imagine you're about to drop an action figure line, and then the world stops. That has got to be a frightening, prospect that these aren't going to be shipping. I can only imagine what that would have been, internally.
Oh yeah, and he had a lot of his own personal fortune invested in making this line work. So he had to be having some nail-biting moments there, waiting for that slow boat to come from China to get where it needed to go. Not a great time, but he weathered through. And even with the delays for Big Bad, everybody got their stuff. Just had to be a little patient. And the special versions of the Steel Brigade that were exclusive, the Night Ops. After the smoke cleared and everybody got through all the problems with the COOF, shipments came on time. Things started coming out, and now if he says they're going to be coming at a certain quarter or a certain date, better believe it, it's going to happen. And if there's a delay, he's going to let you know. There's a lot of transparency with this company that is appreciated compared to others. Wow, we're definitely over our normal time for an episode, but this is,
I ranted a little.
Stuff. Oh no. I mean, this is why I wanted you here, Xazyl, because you do have a lot of great insight into the Sarge himself and the characters that he's portrayed. We'll finish off here with the video that we usually run at the beginning. We're going to run it at the end this time because we just had so much to go through. So there we are. You know,
Nice.
it makes perfect sense. This is the first character based on a larger than life person, and it makes sense he would have a larger than life episode. And it's been a lot of fun. Thank you, Xazyl, for joining us here in the pre-recorded section. Now we'll head over to the live section where Will and the other me will be hanging out, ready to take some questions from the Peanut Gallery in the live chat. And I'm sure we'll see you drop in there if possible. I know the time.
Yeah, I'll be hanging out in the live chat, even if it's from my office at work. Shh, quiet. Don't tell. But Jim, thank you for having me on the show. You and Will have a tremendous show. I'm a huge fan. I try to catch it live wherever I can, but it's always worth a rewatch if I don't make it.
Excellent. We're having a lot of fun doing it, and it's a labor of love, and we just want to make sure people know there's depth to this. You know, this toy line has got legs, it's got a future, it's got a major motion picture, it's got novels, it's got everything. Come one, come all. So definitely enjoying the ride and looking forward to Joe Fest, Valicon. I'm excited to hear your experiences that you're going to have there, along with my cohorts that are going to be there with you. So it's cool stuff coming. So
it's going to be great.
Yeah, as I say to Will, I'll see you on the other side.